but Lex wants to kill him. That's his interest. And he figures out that kryptonite would be the way to do it. And naturally, there must be some remnant of the exploded planet on Earth, because it definitely would have traveled the 2.5 million light years to Earth in the same amount of time, actually less time, it took for Superman to get to Earth and grow up. And to be clear, 2.5 million light years is the absolute best scenario, since again, Krypton was in another galaxy. And he found it right away. It was like immediate. Nerd! Welcome back to The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be ranking Superman from 1978, starring Christopher Reeve, Margot Kidder, Gene Hackman, and Marlon Brando, with a story by Mario Puzo and a screenplay by Mario Puzo as well, but also David Newman, Leslie Newman, and Robert Benton, and they were based on the characters created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, and directed by Richard Donner. If you're enjoying these rankings, or you just like the idea of getting a review of an action movie based on it being an action movie, please consider subscribing and or following, liking, reviewing. Please put any of your questions, comments, suggestions into the comments, or email the show at info@therankedpodcast.com. And if you super duper like it, please consider becoming a patron on our Patreon site at patreon.com/therankedpodcast. Now, this movie came out in 1978, so you've had 47 years to watch it, so I'm not going to worry about spoiling it, so there's your spoiler alert. Now, will Superman 1978 join the pantheon of great action movies? Will it stand up to Superman 2025, which is the reason that I decided to do this for today?
Probably not, but maybe.
Well, let's find out, starting with the potent notables.
Potent notables.
Now, as always, we start the potent notables with the movie's financials. Superman made $134.2 million domestically and $166 million internationally, which includes 4 re-releases from 2018, 2020, 2021, and 2023, for a worldwide total of $300.5 million. And this was against a budget of $55 million, which is kind of a big budget for 1978. But it really seems like the producer of this movie, Alexander Salkind, was just throwing money around. He called up Richard Donner in 1977 and was basically like, hey, I'm making Superman. The original director, Guy Hamilton, dropped out, and now I need you to direct it. I'll give you $1 million. He also gave Marlon Brando $4 million for his few weeks of filming, and Gene Hackman another $2 million. And apparently they were going to be shooting soon after the offer was made. The one question Donner asked was, what's your script like? And Salkind said, perfect. Yet, as Donner tells it, when he got the script an hour later, it was huge. Quote, so thick and big, you'd get a hernia from lifting it. It took forever to read, apparently, and it was, quote, the longest thing I have ever read. It was indulgent and heavy and had no point of view and treated the comic books with disrespect. So maybe not perfect, Salkind. Now, one of the moments in the not perfect script, Superman was supposed to go around Metropolis looking for every bald head trying to find Lex Luthor. Quote, and then he flies down and taps a guy on the shoulder, and it's Kojak's Telly Savalas, who hands him a lollipop and says, who loves you, baby? So that's not great. Essentially, Donner agreed to do the movie because he loved Superman as a kid. He thought if they made this movie as written, they were going to destroy the legend of Superman. He, quote, wanted to do it just to defend him, end quote. So Lex and Jor-El were set, but Superman wasn't, right? So Lex was going to be Gene Hackman, Jor-El was going to be Marlon Brando. They didn't have a Superman. The producers wanted a star to play Superman, but Donner really fought for an unknown. Part of the reason was because he felt like the flight mechanics looked terrible, and, quote, even if you saw Paul Newman or Robert Redford in that costume, no one is going to believe them. So, though they still had him meet with a bunch of big names at the time, including Sylvester Stallone, this is how we ended up with Christopher Reeve as Superman. Though, according to Donner, he told him he looked the part, but he needed to be more muscular. Christopher, being persistent, claimed that he was athletic in school, but when he went into acting, he lost 50 pounds. Now, Donner said he didn't believe him, but, quote, hired him on faith. So, to obtain the musculature to convincingly play Superman, Christopher Reeve underwent a bodybuilding regime supervised by David Prowse. And you might know David Prowse as the man who played Darth Vader in the original Star Wars trilogy. While they initially got along quite well, Reeve ended up firing Prowse after the bodybuilder suddenly left the country for 10 days without warning or explanation. Prowse also did audition for both Superman and Non, so I guess he didn't get the parts. Now, on his first day on the set, Marlon Brando suggested to Richard Donner that the cameras roll during rehearsal. Brando reportedly said, who knows, we might get lucky. Now, according to Donner, that very first take was the one that was used in the finished film. Initially, Apparently, Gene Hackman refused to shave off his mustache to play Lex Luthor. In early one-sheets of the movie, his face is featured with a mustache. Before Richard Donner and Gene Hackman met face-to-face, Donner proposed to Hackman that if he would shave his mustache, Donner would shave his too, and Hackman agreed. It turned out later that Donner did not have a mustache at all. He wore a false mustache that he peeled off at the last moment. So realizing he'd been had, Hackman roared with laughter and from then on was on Donner's side throughout the tumultuous production. That's kind of fun. So now on to Margot Kidder. Apparently there was a rule on set that she wasn't allowed to act with her contacts in because one day when they were shooting, she scratched her eye putting her contacts in, and Donner had her do it without her contacts, right? So, quote, that day she was wonderful because she was wide-eyed with no depth perception. She walked into a desk and she was the girl that I wanted her to be. She said, but I can't see. There was a law after that. Every morning people had to come to me and make sure she didn't have her contacts in and that she would act without her contacts. It just made her wonderful, end quote. That's not great. Just make her blind. She acts better when she's blind. All right, Richard. And for the last potent notable, after the movie was released and made a bunch of money, Donner had time for one last gripe. He was disgusted that production designer John Barry and cinematographer Jeffrey Unsworth received no recognition from the Academy for their work on the film. He was particularly aggrieved that one of the nominees for Best Art Direction was California Suite, which merely duplicated an existing hotel, while Barry created an entire fictional city and a fortress in the Arctic. So those are all the potent notables. Let's go on to the movie overview. Now, I went into this movie expecting to enjoy it. Interestingly, I don't know that I had ever actually seen this before. And after watching it, I'm still not sure. So if I had watched it previously, it certainly didn't make an impression. And not to give anything away too early, but I can see why. So we start out on Krypton with Jor-El, played by Marlon Brando, who I thought was pretty good actually. And he's sentencing Zod and two others to prison in the Phantom Zone. What's the Phantom Zone? It's a square. Yeah, they float through space on a square. I originally was going to call it a flattened cube, but then I was like, well, that's a square. A square is a flattened cube. And then it's directly into Jor-El warning the council that the planet is on the brim of exploding, with the technical term. So of course the council bullies Jor-El into staying on Krypton. So he sends his only son Kal-El, who's a freaking baby, into space because obviously he would survive that no problem. Also, they are technologically thousands of years beyond us, supposedly, but they have only 2 scientists and they have only 28 known galaxies. So how advanced are they? Now for all of this, I was thinking, okay, it's not great, but I'll stay on board. Let's see where they go. This movie is so weirdly taking itself seriously and then very much not. Like Superman is a real guy, but then Lex Luthor is a rich guy, I guess, who wants to be a criminal and has an underground lair in the subway, but has as his only employee a bumbling moron. And the whole villainy aspect of this is just so goofy and slapstick. Then we have a super serious love story between Lois and Superman, and Clark, I think. She's head over heels for Superman like right away, and Clark is just a big fan of this. But maybe it's just me, at no point did I feel any chemistry between Clark and Lois. There was definitely some between her and Superman, and yes, I realize that they're the same person, but between her and Clark, there was nothing. Actually, when they were going on their date, I was like, wait, what happened? How are they going to dinner? Also, he just falls in love with Lois immediately, but there's never any expression of love or anything. It was all just awkwardly following her around like a puppy, and we were supposed to discern that he's in love with her, I guess. Anyway, the love story wasn't great. So we watch as they build the story of Superman's origin on Earth, and in parallel, the story of Lex Luthor's crime of the century, so Lex Luthor calls it. This is where I was wondering, how are we going to piece this together? Now, how did they do it? Well, they had Lex become interested in Superman because, well, he's Superman. But Lex wants to kill him. That's his interest. And he figures out that kryptonite would be the way to do it. And naturally, there must be some remnant of the exploded planet on Earth because it definitely would have traveled the 2.5 million light years to Earth in the same amount of time, actually less time, it took for Superman to get to Earth and grow up. And to be clear, 2.5 million light years is the absolute best scenario since, again, Krypton was in another galaxy. And he found it right away. It was like immediate. Nerd! Okay, so still don't see how this actually connects to their story? Well, really, we don't even know what Lex's plan is yet. So how will they have us find out as the audience? He's going to lure Superman to his underground lair to come find him by speaking to him on a really high frequency that only dogs or Superman can hear. And then he's going to get him to his lair and tell him his plan? naturally, right? I mean, that's what you do. You tell the good guy, the indestructible good guy, your plan.
That actually is in the handbook.
Now, if your argument is that, hey, he had to kill Superman because Superman is the only thing that could stop him, well, this is assuming that Superman would have noticed that there were two rogue nuclear warheads right at the end there. I don't know. This wasn't great storytelling. I think at this point you're getting the idea, so let's just head to the rank.
A rank.
So the rank is where I rank the movie based on 10 categories: story, acting, originality, action sequences, film coherence, hero appeal, villain appeal / hatred, supporting characters appeal, the final showdown, and my rank. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And the first category is story, which I gave a 3.25. Now I'm being very generous with this story because I'm going to attack it during the coherence category, so I guess buckle up. So broad strokes, it's an origin story of Superman. The lore of Krypton was fun. The love story between Lois and him is super boring. It was very episodic, and Lex Luthor being a part of it was necessary, but not well done. All in all, I like the origin story of Superman, so I gave it a decent score. So let's go to acting, which I gave a 3. Gene Hackman is pretty good, and so is Marlon Brando, because, you know, he's Brando, but it's not great. Everyone's fine. It's average is what it is as far as acting. So let's go to originality, which I gave a 4.25. Look, it's the first mainstream superhero movie, the first one to do the origins of a superhero. It's definitely going to get points for that, right? It started a whole genre of movies, basically. So gotta give credit for that. So let's go to action sequences, which I gave a 2. Now I'm pretty sure that in 1978, these scenes were pretty neat, right? In 2025, they are not. Maybe I shouldn't judge through the lens of the future, but I found it hard to be interested in the action sequences because they felt so poor. And holy shit, the racing the train scene, I mean, just wow, is that awful. I'm sorry, Superman 1978 fans. Just, you know, rewatch it now. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments, but this is not good. So let's go to film coherence, which I gave a 1.5. Where do I start on this? It's like an hour too long. There's basically no coherence to this story. I'm not even going to talk about the ridiculousness of him traveling not interstellar, but intergalactic space. No, let's talk about the fact that there is literally no reason for the Superman plot, or lack thereof, and the Lex Luthor plot lining up. The only reason it does is because Lex decides to tell Superman his evil plot. Why? No reason. Just wanted to tell him. He figured out that kryptonite would kill Superman in a couple minutes, but can't figure out how to get better help? Or maybe he shouldn't tell an indestructible man his evil plans? On top of that, no meteorite is going through intergalactic space and just happening to land on Earth. Also, his girlfriend was okay with everything up until her mom would die in Hackensack. When Superman takes Lois out for a flight, she's just flying next to him somehow. And then, on top of everything else, he puts only Lois back in time. He spun the whole fucking Earth in the opposite direction, but only Lois went back in time. What the hell was that? I do not understand this ending. I'm sorry. Somebody explain it to me. Please tell me what I'm missing. So let's go to hero appeal. I gave that a 3. Look, he's Superman, right? But really, there's not a ton of charisma here. I still enjoyed seeing Christopher Reeve being Superman from like a nostalgia point of view, but I'm not gonna roast it because of that, but it's just, you know, it didn't do much for me. So let's go to villain appeal / hatred, which I also gave a 3. As much as this movie isn't that great, Gene Hackman was charismatic and funny as Lex Luthor, but that's about it. Lex is supposed to be a genius, but he's a moron in this, except that he deduces how to kill Superman and how to find it really fast, but then trusts his deputies to do stuff when one of them especially is clearly a dumbass. All right, well, let's go to supporting characters appeal, which I gave a 3, unsurprisingly. I don't know, they're all fine. Jor-El was probably the most interesting supporting character, but that's not really saying a ton. Lois is fine. It was fine. So let's go to the final showdown, which I gave a 2. I don't know. I mean, I suppose stopping the splitting of the San Andreas Fault is kind of neat. He saves Lois's life by changing the rotation of the Earth, which somehow only affects her. See, film coherence. He brings Lex to a jail, and the warden just accepts that with no questions. He's like, here's a bald guy. And the warden goes, thanks for the bald guy, Superman. See ya. What are we talking about here? Okay. So let's go to my rank, which I gave a 2.25. Look, this movie is not good. It just isn't. There's some nostalgia that piques my interest, and there were moments of fun, like Gene Hackman was surprisingly funny, but it mostly felt interminable to watch. for me. So that puts the total for Superman 1978 at 27.25, which puts it in the tier rank it and regret it. And regret it I do. That is 151 minutes of time that I'm just not going to get back. So thanks for listening and or watching, everybody. If you'd like to see a list of our action movie rankings, you can do that on our website at therankpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe, review, and comment, and please consider supporting us on our Patreon site at patreon.com/therankpodcast, where you can get access to all of our archived episodes. And Rosham Bem. If you're enjoying these rankings or just like the idea of getting a review based, oh my God.
I should be used to this by now.